Welcome to the Ripple Effect with Ray. We've got Vince here. He's the founder and owner of A to Z Elite Sports Performance, head trainer as well. Thanks so much for being here.
Absolutely. No, I'm excited to chat. This should be fun.
Amazing. So tell me a little bit more about your story. How and why did you decide to start A to Z?
Yeah, so I would say, last time we chatted, it was more about my move out here to Utah. Utah was a new beginning for me, originally from Santa Barbara, California, and I met, I would say, my best friend in one of my best friends in the soccer world here, or at UC Santa Barbara in college. And he invited me out to Utah to many games when he was playing professionally here. And ultimately, we collabed on a project when he retired from professional soccer and landed here in Utah, Harriman, Utah to be exact. And then we slowly transitioned into a couple of different facilities. But eventually, I got a little popular with some of the work that I was doing with him. And I had a lot of inquiries in regard to my sports performance abilities and just like my coaching style, all the above. So that was pretty awesome to grow fairly quickly when I got out here. But just about a year in, we decided to part or separate our businesses. So I launched A to Z in May of 2021. And I just hit the ground running with my vision. And I think you asked the why, and my main focus is what was the vision that we had as whether being an athlete or a client at another facility in the sports performance world, and what was missing? What didn't we necessarily get attention put toward? And for me, I think injuries were a big thing for me when I was playing soccer at a high level. And I look back at still the training that I was getting, and it was elite. It was high level. I was training with elite coaches. I was training with elite companions and things like that, but I still got hurt. And injuries impact people's careers. Injuries impact people's psychological approach and their happiness ultimately. I think that's a big deal for me. So when I was getting this thing off the ground, that was a big focus of mine, was to say we can train a certain type of way, we can train intense, we can train with all the weights in the world, but ultimately injuries are still a risk for us as athletes. So my main focus was to change that and to say, hey, let's look in a little bit deeper into why people are moving the way they are and take a look at their biomechanical snapshot and see what their strategies are for movement. And that was something that I was getting at my training facility when I was a kid, but there was never any real explanations behind it. So there was no real educational aspect. It was more for their data collection. And so I think now that I'm got behind the steering wheel here and when we're driving, I think that was a big thing for me, was trying to educate my athletes and say, hey, let's fix the way that you're moving. Here's why. I think there's a high risk of injury here, and let's stay away from that type of movement, or let's fix it, let's strengthen it, whatever that may be. So utilizing that platform ultimately is really changing my athletes and just the way that they're looking at sports performance. So I would say that's pretty much the why for me, is doing what wasn't available to me when I was at a high level and sharing it now with the youth athletes that I interact with and even the professional athletes that I work with.
What do you find most common that people come to you with? What problems?
It's definitely grown. Obviously, I focus on a lot of female soccer athletes. That's a big market out here in Utah, and it's just growing in general in the United States. The soccer world it's very popular. I identify it as a cash cow. I mean, kids are paying thousands of dollars to be in these platform leagues and just to be a part of something. And it wasn't necessarily like that when I was playing, but I would say the ACL epidemic, right? ACLs being torn left and right. Is it avoidable? I think that there's definitely some approaches that we could take and some protocols that we can change in the sports world. And like I said, this is for all sports, not just soccer. Mainly I focus on soccer, but so most of the people that are coming to me are dealing with ACLs, MCL tears, meniscus tears, things of that nature. And I work with them pre-op, post-op, all the above. So for me, it's a knee thing, but I've always said that the knees are more of a culprit of a weak hip or a weak ankle or an unaligned hip, unaligned ankle, weak glutes, weak soleus, weak ankles, things like that. So the knee is just something that will move based on what's above it and what's below it. And so we got to stabilize above and below before we can fix that problem.
Absolutely. And so you touched on this, the ACL epidemic, that like people are tearing things within the knee, left and right. What have you been seeing like that's different now for people in the like younger younger athletes that maybe you didn't see when you were an athlete?
Yeah, the easy one is just the
Mm,
load that these kids are being put under is insane. Once again, I blame the market and or I should say, where the organizations are like pushing these kids is they're trying to deliver based on the price point, right? So if you're paying fees for to be a part of a club or an organization, whether that be volleyball, softball, soccer, football, even sometimes, but the club wants to deliver practices. The club wants to deliver some sort of schedule or protocol that, hey, we train 3 times a week and we're getting better and we're doing X, Y, and Z. But ultimately, they're not really allowing the athletes to rest. They're not letting their bodies recover. And most of these kids, if you just talk to them, and I get to spend a lot of time with them, so I chat with them. I'm a neutral source. I'm somewhere that they feel safe to chat with. And you're looking at kids, especially here in Utah, they're waking up 6 o'clock, 6:30 in the morning, getting to school by 7:30. They're sitting there for what, 7, 8 hours till 3 p.m. They probably ate at like 11:30 for a lunchtime, which is probably more breakfast. They're dehydrated. They're not sleeping that well. They're probably stressed about homework and all the above, right? High anxiety, all the above. And then they have to rush home and then go to practice Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, whether it's 4 times or 3 times. Most of these clubs are offering 3 times, and then they maybe get a Friday off, but most of the time they're traveling to a game or they're going Saturday, Sunday to a game and competing at a high level, sometimes twice a weekend. And then they got to do it all again the next week. And so, where, if you want to dive in a little deeper, you're talking about surfaces, right? Surfaces, which is artificial turf for the field players, and these hardwood for volleyball players, basketball players, things like that. And they're not training. They're not training. They're not prepping their bodies to go out there and compete at this level. From a strength perspective, from a performance perspective, you have to like actually strengthen your muscles, your tendons, your ligaments, and practice changing direction. You can't just show up and execute these movements. We're not, that's not how our body works. Unfortunately, that's what I think is happening is the workload of these youth athletes that are being put under, and then the surfaces that they're pounding their joints on a day in, day out basis. It's taking a toll on them.
absolutely. And what I heard from somebody else too is that these sports used to be, they were seasonal, right? Now we're seeing these sports are year round. So their body doesn't even get catch a break, really. If you're playing a sport for 3, 4 months when you're in middle school and high school, it's one thing. But if you're in high school, you're training for college, whatever, like you're playing soccer year round, you're playing volleyball year round, it's like that's quite a difference than what it used to be. What would you say has been, as far as just even to shift gears to A to Z, what do you feel? You said people have really enjoyed working with you at A to Z. What has been working really well, and then what's been maybe either challenging, frustrating? What's been one of your pain points?
Yeah, with A to Z, I'd say the style of training, the coaching style, just like my ambiance that I put on in the space, the environment. I think people enjoy it. Obviously, playing at a high level, playing Division 1 soccer, my just basically bringing my own experience into the gym. I mean, from a growth perspective, like it didn't start like that, but I would say the model has evolved into this over the last 5, 6 years, and I've been able to pretty much share my experience through coaching, through regular clients, right? So these individuals are coming back, you're almost capping your clients and you're getting to bond with these individuals and say, hey, look, like I I'm actually starting at a certain point and I'm seeing these results 5, 6 months later and they're actually working, right? Not from my perspective, but to show that to an athlete and have them come back and say, hey, like this is actually working for me. You're seeing them get faster, you're seeing them get stronger. So obviously the client retention comes from the results that they're getting. But I would say that one of the biggest things that isn't advertised a ton on my platforms is the fascia work. I know we like dialed in a little bit to that last time we chatted, but the fascia work has been a game changer for me. Granted, I was mentored in a unique way to incorporate that into my program, but I think that's more so what even this call is about, sharing that aspect, which is I think everyone can be a strength coach. I think everyone could be a performance coach. I think most coaches are pretty good at whether it's mechanics or form for weightlifting. But I like going back to what I was saying about changing what I didn't like about just that weightlifting aspect was why are we getting hurt still? What is what is the breakdown of this? And for me, it was diving into the fascia work and the nervous system and how that impacts how our bones are being pulled, how our muscles are tightening, our tendons are tightening, pulling on the bone, pulling on the nerve, creating pain, creating discomfort, and ultimately leading to injury, right? If we're not comfortable landing a certain type of way, if we're not comfortable running a certain type of way, everything is a compensation. Our body is constantly compensating. So I think that was a huge thing for me and understanding that, diving in deeper research and then sharing it with my athletes and saying, hey, this is why you look like this today, right? This is not activated. This is not working for you. You're not running this fast today because of X, Y, and Z. And so having those answers, I think sharing that with your clients, it means a lot. And they obviously are going to come back and trust you for sure.
And
That's
so
on the
just,
client side.
yes, absolutely. So tell me, say more about the fascia work because for me, I think about it like foam rolling, loosening up the muscles and yeah, taking the ball to the shoulder and because the muscles tend to get really tight when they're worked or we're stressed. Is that kind of the main idea or do you have something to add to that?
Yeah, so the fascia is, for those that don't know what it is, it's pretty much this like spider webby, sticky substance that lays over our muscles, right? And it ultimately tends to latch onto the areas that are being used or overused. It's going to go towards areas that have trauma, that are experiencing stress in our body, whether it's there to protect us, whether it's there to cushion us, whether it's there to send aid. That's probably more so what it is, but it doesn't go anywhere unless you move it, right? And it's usually moved through manual therapy, and he obviously is going to create an opportunity for it to settle. My main focus with that was knots, right? Or almost like this cellulite looking area that is just congested. I always call it congestion or density, right? We call it density, densification over the muscles, and it's just creating blockage, right? It's creating weight and things of that type of feeling. So, in order to feel like you're normal again, all you have to do, like you said, I'm not saying it's all you have to do, but it is one of the remedies, right? Foam rolling, Theraguns, smaller massage balls, lacrosse balls, something as simple as rolling out your feet with a lacrosse ball, right? Or a tennis ball. These are things that like athletes don't really think about on a regular basis. That is, like you said, prepping your body. So you're loosening up your fascia. But most people do what? They go work out, then they foam roll, right? They foam roll after, like, oh, I'm going to be sore tomorrow or lactic acid, but not really. I'd rather just prep my body and loosen up my body, make sure my fascia is prepped to go compete or to go train. I've had the best results probably from that. And even speaking with some of my professional athletes that go into the training area, foam roll for 30 minutes prior to a practice and activate those areas, right? Because you're pressing on the nervous system, you're reactivating and turning things on, and you're going to feel a lot better going into your session. But most athletes are like the backwards and they're like, I want to roll out when I'm sore. Like that's not really how it works. But yeah, to each his own, right? Everyone's different. Everyone has different methods to their training game and whatnot. But I would say to dive a little deeper into what I do is my main goal is to find the problem areas. We got to troubleshoot, right? If we're in pain, we have to find out where that pain is stemming from and let's go figure it out. And I love that. That's like where I say I would thrive in this environment is I'm having my athletes actually get gratification and results through manual therapy and saying if your knee hurts, or I get a lot of patella, I use patella as patella pain underneath the knee, and most of that is stemming from your quads. So your patellofemoral above the knee is pulling on the kneecap and it's irritating the lower aspect of your patella tendon underneath the knee. But most people are like, stay off of it. You have jumper's knee, you have runner's knee. But ultimately, it's just like your patellofemoral is really tight or dense. So it's irritating the actual kneecap and it's not, it's jumping around. And that's what's going to create the inflammation, friction. Little things like that, right? Where we're just geeking out on what the fascia can do is just hinder your movement. And
Yeah,
we got to get rid of that.
absolutely. And I like the comparison of how people need to foam roll to not either, or, oh, I'm sorry, I need a foam roll. It's, I think that so many times we act that way in life. It's like we gotta do the thing after the thing happens,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Instead of actually like prepping our body
Yeah, be
beforehand.
proactive.
Yeah, exactly. Being proactive, being
Yeah.
preventive. And yeah, so I completely can relate to that. Now I know that that
Yeah.
actually helps. So where do you see yourself next 6, 12 months from now?
I'm tapping in May will be start of year six. So I'd say we're at that say that semi-decade mark. I had a 10-year plan on it. I had a 5-year plan and then I bumped it to a 10-year plan. I think for me it's about just continuing to slow and steady. I'm not really one to worry about hitting it out the park. I just want to be slow and steady, be consistent. I think that's what got me here and that's what I want to stay with. But ideally, I scale. I would love to transition into a second facility in California. That's obviously where I'm from originally. And so being in Utah full time has been great. I share some time in California Friday through Sundays. I don't like to say I'm out there every weekend, but try to be out there every weekend if I can. And so I would like to launch something over the next few years here in California and just share the work. I think that's I think I'm a very unique piece in this market and utilizing platforms like this, especially to just get my word out there, even just really just focusing on and chatting about it helps you grow. And I don't think we do that enough. Sometimes we don't get enough platforms to chat. We just go to work, we get it done, and you go home and you do it all again the next day. But I think stuff like this helps us expand. So yeah, that would be my main focus in the next 5 years here to go into a second market in a more full-time on a more full-time basis. But I love Utah. I think it's been good to me, so I can't complain.
Yeah. Thank you, Vince, so much for joining me here on the Ripple Effect with Ray. Really looking forward to hearing what our viewers and audience have to say about today's episode. Thank you again.
Yes, of course. I appreciate it.